Hey, friends and family. Hey, fools. Hey, loved ones. Hey, beloveds. Artists, magicians, gardeners, family. Hey, friends. What's going on? What are you up to today? So, I'm just at play, and things are in play, and things are playing out in every way. And I'm just doing my thing, showing up as love for me and we, and doing my best to meet my challenges and accept where we all are. And so my last video, although I was sharing some lighthearted fun and some good news and some positive developments and things that are unfolding, and that's where my focus usually is, on the joy and creative possibilities and just everything there is to be grateful for, and the gift of life, the gift of being alive, the gift of being here at this time. And some days are easy, and it's really easy to feel joyful and free, and some days aren't so easy, and they feel a little shitty and sucky sometimes. So yeah, I have my cocksucker card here, just reminding me, that there's value in the floppy. There's value in all of it. And just working with alligator medicine, integration, and digesting all of life's experiences, making the room and making the space for all things to exist and all things to be and all things to become what they are and will get to be. And so just kind of reviewing and reflecting and contemplating some of the messages and some of the cards that I was drawn to, or that were drawn into my life and into my awareness. And a couple of those that I shared in the last little week, or last little while in the last week, was the sage and the maiden and the crone, the father and desire and death and rebirth. But I mentioned the crone and the maiden last time, and those were some interesting messages that I received. And so I just want to review and then continue with some of my continuity and streams that I've been receiving and what I've been witnessing, what I've been playing in, what I've been seeing playing out, and how that relates to the inner and outer stage. And there's themes, persecution themes I'm working with, and working with some anger that's been stirred up, which is interesting because I wasn't really in contact or feeling quite connected to my anger or to feelings of anger. But the crone card, when I flipped open my book to the Crone and Dreams of Gaia Tarot by Ravynne Phelan, this is what I got. So the future, when the crone appears to be in the future position, it symbolizes the approach and effect of this state of being on your life in the future, whether it be a stage of life that you move toward or you need to embody, or the influence someone who is crone in nature will have in your life. The crone is coming. Whichever it may be, welcome her with open arms rather than trying to ignore or resist her. And so that was interesting too, because I had mentioned a podcast I listened to, or a call I listened to by Kahn, and it was the wisdom of not knowing. And something that I needed to hear was that we play little games with ourselves. Our ego is pretty tricksy, and we play little games with ourselves so that we can avoid ourselves, or that we can avoid the pain. And so I was like, oh, damn. So it's just kind of like following these little breadcrumbs and this little trail, my little clues, and these little keys to help me navigate these changes into higher frequencies. And it's not always easy, and it's not always comfortable, and it's not always pleasing. It's not always pleasant. It doesn't always feel good. And so, yeah, there's been some shit that's been stirred up in the last couple days, and it was, like, on its way anyways. Like, yeah. Seeing that in hindsight, where frustration was bubbling up, and I'm just, like, kind of fed up in certain ways, and just kind of remembering, okay, yay, this is a challenge. This is a challenge for me. I'm embracing my challenges because they help me grow, and they help me learn, and they help me remember and discover more of me, and that inclusivity, and more like integration, more work, more work and play. And so it's just a continuous process and a continuous journey and a continuous play of this consciousness, this journey, and this remembering, this awakening, this becoming. And so, yeah, it is kind of funny trying to avoid pain or avoid the discomfort, and by playing these little games. And so one message that's come up this week, and I've just been looking at this board that I made several months ago, and the themes have been emerging and coming up for me to see and to receive, so I can alchemize and integrate this within me, integrate these inner conflicts or these power struggles or these seemingly polarized aspects within me. So this board right here, yeah, I shared it a couple months ago, and it seems like up here in this direction, yeah, there's a car crash and an explosion and a fire happening. And down here, this was a little thing I found in a National Geographic talking about the witch trials or the Inquisition and the persecution themes, yeah, that went on in Spain for hundreds and hundreds of years and led to like mass genocide because of frenzy and paranoia and self-righteousness and fear. And this here is the Kraken, and I had no idea really, like, what is that about? Okay, it's octopus and tentacles and things, but actually, like, a little bit after, I kind of thought, like, maybe that symbolizes, like, the Hydra, or, like, in, like, the Hindu pantheon, there's, like, stories about demons and things, and when one head's cut off, you know, like, several more grow in their place and things like that. And so it's like, yeah, this endless cycle of suffering and pain and disease. Like, in certain ways, we cut one head off and then 7 grow up in its place, you know, in certain ways. So it's interesting. And then we have boar here, wild boar. And wild boar medicine, that's all about confronting and facing our fears and acknowledging, like, where we've deceived ourselves or where we've deceived others. And so it is all about deception. And that's kind of like what I am, yeah, kind of working with and playing with right now, is my feelings of anger around all the deception and manipulation and things that disempower and cause us to distrust ourselves, distrust the love in our hearts, and distrust one another, and distrust life. And so I'll read a little bit about boar medicine in a little bit. I just think it's so interesting that, yeah, this board, I was really looking at it last night, and then certain themes emerged today, and yeah, certain things came up on September 11th, where, yeah, I got to do a little bit of forgiving and releasing and surrendering, and not get carried away by my self-righteous indignation and my anger around all these things and the deception and control and manipulation. And yeah, here we have looks like the Eye of Ra and the Falcon of Horus there, and the armadillo and the Om symbol. And then the wild roller coaster ride, the male and the female there inside. And the well, actually, like, yeah, this well that's like kind of square at the top. And it just reminds me of like squaring the circle and coming through the other side and moving toward the light from the shadows, or illuminating, bringing the shadow into the light, which is interesting. And everyone's there to witness that. And yeah, they're looking into it, which is interesting. And here we have a picture of a Buddha underneath the Bodhi tree, and he's on these little steps there, which is interesting. And you can see his lungs, and it's all about the breath and breathing and everything, and connecting the heart and the mind, which is pretty awesome and interesting too. Now that I've been practicing, choosing to practice my Kundalini yoga, and that's been feeling pretty great, and it has helped me a lot. It's helped me so much this week, and it's helped with some digestive issues, and all those good things, and just helping me to calm my mind and breathe and take it one moment at a time, and just these different reminders that are helping me remember what it is that I want to focus on, and just to help to remind me of what it is that I'm working toward, to be clear with my goals and desires. And so, the fruit and the nourishment and the juice, the fruit that offers itself, if I can recognize, what is being offered and being watered here, watering and attending to my own garden and my own inner child, my own inner life, and then letters, and paying attention to the words and the way I direct my own energy to communicate and relate to those around me. And porcupine medicine, playfulness and trust. Playfulness and trust. And dragonfly, all about power and power lessons in power. And then there's a hawk up here, which does have to do with sight and communication. And the whole view, and unifying the two, the dual nature. And just kind of thinking the master and the servant, like the mind is a terrible master, but it's a beautiful servant as well. And the giver and the receiver, and the giver and the receiver as one. And then there's like the little astrological symbols and glyphs here, have to do with all the planets and the stars. And so that's everything I'm working on right now, and it's pretty interesting, like, to see it in a certain ways. Like, it kind of all makes sense in irrational ways. And there is a reverse side of this board, and this is like, some of the images of slavery, mental slavery, and domination and control, and little self and bigger self, and separation, dismemberment and rememberment, and all those things, like our choices that lead us to where we are and where we'll be. And then just little reminders for me, just to look at and to look into, and to help me navigate through this, to help me, like, with taking care of myself, and the integrity of the whole, in service to the whole. So that's just one board that's been coming up for me, some of the images and the themes, the archetypal themes. So I'll continue with the crone. And so the crone is coming. Whichever it may be, welcome her with open arms rather than trying to ignore or resist her. Else you might find yourself being whacked upside the head with loving efficiency. She represents the need to take a direct and forthright approach, especially when it comes to making future plans. Be brave and determined, do what is necessary, not what is expected. And so I went ahead and read the potential blockage because it felt like it was a message for me and it related. And at the time, I didn't really understand, but now I do, and so I just want to share. Potential blockage. When the crone appears in the reverse position, this symbolizes a need to get in touch with your shadow self. It is time to draw on the strength of your shadow and get angry. Not a rash and reactive anger, but a cold, defiant, and determined anger. Someone may need to be told to take a long walk off a short pier because if you do not tell them, they are going to continue to expect you to be meek and compliant. They may want you to feel unimportant, and they may want you to believe you have no purpose. They may want you to question and doubt yourself. They may want you to do as you were told. They may want you to stay in the nice, brown, boring box that they believe to be your perfect fit. Regardless of their reactions, they want you to remain in a doubtful and uncertain state of mind because it gives them more power to control you and disempower you. So it is now time for you to say no. It is time for you to prove them wrong by doing everything they tell you that you cannot or should not or are unable to do. It is time to be fierce. It is time to fight back. Do not be afraid. Do not give up. The crone reverse symbolizes a need to go to war if necessary to prove your worth, not to them, but to yourself. And yeah, the thing about this was like, I just want to be at peace. I just want to make peace, but I can't ignore or deny what needs to be addressed and confronted, what needs to be faced. And so sometimes I do, it's interesting, I have little Freudian slips, and I have been saying, face a lot when I go back and I listen to certain videos, and I'm just like, okay, what do I get to face? And so it's like, all right, I'm willing to face this, I'm willing to confront this, and even though, I've spent so much time, it feels like, working and playing with my anger, my feelings of anger. I did so much work with that. I worked so hard the last little while to make peace. And it's just I was attached to that, to what that was supposed to look like, to what that peace was supposed to look like, and how it was supposed to feel. And so it's don't settle for false peace, and confront what you need to. And so, even if it's clumsy and awkward, I'm willing to face that. So, it's time to get in touch with your shadow self. It's time to draw on the strength of your shadow and get angry. Not a rash and reactive anger, but a cold, defiant, and determined anger. And so, I was thinking about that, and I was like, okay, well, what does my anger have to show me and have to tell me about these things, and what am I frustrated with, and what do I feel angry about right now? Because there's so much to feel grateful for, and so much to feel joyful about, right now. But it's I can make room for that anger as well, and for the things that aren't working, and the things that aren't aligned, and the things that no longer serve me. And so it's just to help me remember where I get to set my healthy boundaries, and also where I can clearly express my desires, wishes, and goals. And that was the maiden. I got a nudge at the last minute to pick this back up because something wanted to be, and I didn't know what that was. And that's just kind of fun, just to be and just to receive. And I've been, being in that place of not knowing and just trusting and letting go, doing my best with that. So I wanted to share a little snippet about the maiden. The maiden's key phrases are: follow your dreams, discover your passions, focus on self-discovery, address self-imposed limits and restrictions, increased independence, seek your own answers, release feelings of fear and abandonment, craving attention, needing rescue, express goals and desires, be true to self, acting with empathy. And so all those things do relate to the things that I've been speaking about and sharing. And it is so funny in so many ways, where in some of my poems, that in my little streams, that authentic streams, in my writing, the damsel in distress has come up a lot. And so it's just needing rescue. Yeah, the damsel in distress, needing rescue in certain ways. The meaning of this card: the maiden walks an unfamiliar path, but does so with confidence and grace. She has been taught by those around her that it is not selfish or conceited to follow her dreams and actively work to manifest her goals and desires. She does so without needing permission from anyone. Much like her male counterpart, the youth, the modern maiden is not afraid to ask questions, challenge the answers, and be the adventurous explorer. But while the youth explores new horizons, the maiden explores herself. The maiden is equally interested in first discovering and then nurturing her interests and increasing her self-knowledge and exploring her waking sexuality. She forms relationships with healthy boundaries and expresses her sexuality with innocent pride and confidence. When she chooses to take a lover for the first time, it will be done without shame or fear of judgment. If she chooses to remain alone, it is not because she believes herself to be undesirable, but because she does not believe that she needs a lover in order to be happy or fulfilled. The maiden card is one of youthful confidence, empowerment, and increasing independence. She is fertile, but uses that fertile nature to create, express, and explore. She is on a journey of self-discovery, focused on learning more about who she is and what makes her happy, and she knows that her explorations in the present will give rise to a future self who knows what she wants from life and is not afraid to make it happen. In the past, the maiden was expected to do as she was told and be true to the expectations of family and society. In the present, the maiden chooses to begin the journey towards self-awareness and empowerment. Hear, hear. And so what I read about last time was the potential blockage of the maiden and the future. I think that's what it was. We'll read the future. The future. The maiden, as illustrated in this deck, is the epitome of self-exploration and the independence and empowerment that is born of self-awareness. To know who you are is to know what you wish to do with your life. To know who you are is to know what will fulfill you and in turn bring abundance to your life. Do you know what you want from life? Do you know your goals and desires? If not, it's time to look within and reflect. Do you know how to express those goals and desires and what steps you need to take in order to manifest them? If not, it is time to find your voice and speak. Seek the answers. Do not wait for others to offer them to you or impose them upon you. Be proactive. Ask and take the first step toward becoming the person you want to be, and do so knowing that the only obstacles in your path are those you have created or allowed to prevent you from moving forward. The child was the seed, and the maiden is the young plant about to bloom. How she blooms is up to you. And that is also true, and it relates to a quote that I shared from My Geek Wisdom a couple times ago. It is not our abilities that define us, it is our choices, and no one else can determine that for you. So, potential blockage. The reversed maiden asks you to look at your dreams and aspirations. Are you acting from a place of genuine love and desire to improve yourself? Or are you resisting because you want things to go your way without a care for others? When we choose to follow our own path, it is not always possible to avoid hurting or saying no to those we care for. However, we can say no with mindfulness, empathy, and understanding. To be firm but kind, be clear when expressing your desires and goals, take into account the needs and feelings of others, and avoid behavior that makes you appear childish or selfish. This behavior will not help others to understand your decisions or respect your choice to walk your own path. And so, yeah, just kind of looking at those things. Because, yeah, I've had some resentments, like, around not being understood and not being received and not being allowed to experience my own ways and my own views. Yeah. That are right for me. And so, yeah, just kind of feeling like those persecution themes, the judgment and betrayal and backstabbing and slander and just like, yeah, deceit, just the manipulation and the deceit. And it just makes me angry and it makes me sad, and it just contributes to more suffering. But yeah, another thing that's interesting, and I don't know where I read it, if it was from the Maiden or the Sage, yeah, but it was kind of saying, don't worry about what others aren't doing. Maybe it'll come up again. Yeah, worry about what you're doing. Don't worry about what others are or are not doing. And pretty much it's like, oh yeah, bring it back to me. Bring it back to me. Because that's the only one I can change. And so I accept the things that I can't change, and I accept the responsibility for the things that I can change. So we'll just set that aside for the moment and see what wants to be. I have been writing a little bit and doing my best to confront the things that are frustrating for me right now. And it is the same thing. It's just another layer of that same thing. And so it's like, yeah, it's around that manipulation and deceit and deception. And so maybe, this is a good time for Boar Medicine. From Medicine Cards by David Carson and Jamie Sands. And I'll have to talk about this that I grabbed on accident. This is from an old keepsake box that I got to go through last fall, and it was just kind of popped up again today, so I think it's interesting and it'll tie into what my desires and goals are. Yeah. And just acknowledging like the pain and the suffering that is right now, and my desire to relieve that pain and suffering and to make it better, but like also to allow it to be, and to allow it to move through in its own order and timing, and the process of healing and reviewing. Yeah. And just kind of surrender to it. Surrender it. So Wild Boar Confrontation. Wild Boar teaches us to confront without fear, ripping apart the denials and lies that appear. Testing courage, finding truth, its medicine will remain, a part of every human path, marking the victories we attain. Although the warrior was accustomed to the sultry heat of his bayou homeland, he was shaking as if from a cold draught. The council of elders had caught him telling a lie. The punishment for this offense was banishment from the tribe. To restore his honor among the people, he would have to face the wild boar with a knife as his only weapon. If he failed, he would die, torn apart by the ravaging tusks of the fiery-eyed beast. This prospect filled him with dread. Then the spirit of the wild boar came to him in a dream. It was enraged that the young man had broken his warrior's vows by lying. It told him that he would first have to face and conquer the self-important and deceitful beast within himself if he hoped to survive their combat. The young warrior vowed to honor the truth from that moment forward, and he faced the wild boar that day and killed the beast. The warrior kept the tusk of his adversary as a lifelong reminder to always confront the weaknesses within himself. There are several varieties of boar, and this powerful medicine of the warrior clans applies to all of them. The Maya called boar javelina, and the Choctaw saw the razorback as wild boar. Its medicine teaches us to confront human weaknesses and to change them into strengths. The human spirit is empowered through wild boar's willingness to confront fears, the challenges at hand, and uncomfortable circumstances. Courageously standing tall without running from the situation that life presents is powerful medicine indeed. If wild boar has charged into your cards today, you are being asked to confront anything or anybody that you have been avoiding. Pay attention. Embrace your warrior nature and find the courage to confront your fears. Or are you being asked to confront a personal weakness or a career challenge? It is time to finish a project that you abandoned thinking it might be too difficult to accomplish. Confront your feelings regarding some situation that makes you nervous or causes discomfort and bring yourself the peace of closure. If you have been procrastinating, wild boar is reminding you to quit avoiding the inevitable. In all cases, it is insisting that you be fully present and mindful of what is happening and why. If you drew this card, you already possess the courage needed to confront all that life offers. Just remember where you hid that courage. Challenges do not simply vanish. Unless you actively embrace your issues, you cannot reclaim your spirit's energy. Half the battle is won through the warrior's willingness to acknowledge and to accept the whole truth at all times. Half the battle is won through the warrior's willingness to acknowledge and to accept the whole truth at all times. Contrary position. If wild boar has appeared in the contrary position, this could be a warning. Because you have been unwilling to confront some challenge, situation, or feeling, it is about to explode in your face. It could be time to evaluate any avoidance mechanisms. Denials can vanish when you confront them with unflinching honesty. If some lie is present now, it is time to come clean with yourself or another. Have you dishonored yourself by breaking a trust? Be strong and make amends. If you do not believe that you are brave enough to confront your mistakes or denials, quit lying to yourself and acknowledge the authentic power of the honorable self within. Remember, you can call upon wild boar to help cut through feelings of helplessness or weaknesses. You can call upon wild boar to help cut through feelings of helplessness or weakness. These sharp tusks can cut to the heart of the matter and reveal the valiant warrior self that you may have unwittingly abandoned. So thank you, boar medicine. And I'll leave it at that right now. See what else wants to be shared about that. But just a willingness to confront. Like, I don't know how to do this, but I'm willing. And so it's just like kind of brings me back to that wisdom of not knowing. Of like, I don't know how to make this a game for my ego to get it right. Like, and so, yeah, I surrender it. I don't know how, but I'm willing. I don't know how to do this, but I'm willing. And I do trust. I do trust in myself, I trust in my life, and I trust in all that I love, and I trust in all the love that loves me. I trust in all the love that's holding me, and I trust in all the love that's here within me and around me, surrounding me always. So that's the half the battle right there. And the other part of it is just being willing to own it, acknowledge it, and choose what I need. And also to speak up and give it a name of what it really is too. And so I know that behind my anger is a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain for all the self-deception and the suffering and the division and the pain and the separation that self-perpetuating cycles of pain. all those stories and identities and roles of the false image that reinforce the story and the pain. So just really, really, really kind of feeling so frustrated and tired of that. Tired of the games and the lies and the shame. Yeah. The manipulation and the guilt and the shame that's being used to dominate, and coerce, control, just dishonor our power. And it's just like that stupid blame name game, and how disempowering that train is, And so another one of my boards that I made, it's actually behind me, behind this other board that I made in February. There's, a little quote on it that says, breaking up is hard to do. And it's like breaking all these patterns up and separating myself, or going through that dismemberment process, and feeling into that severing, And so what this little paper is, it's from a class that I took in 2005 when me and my first husband had split up. This was in September of 2005. And so, that was a while ago. Cycles and cycles ago. And just, wow, how it comes back to me now. So, on 9/21/05, the group identified the following as ways in which breaking up has impacted and continues to impact their lives. And this, list is interesting. It's an interesting list that has a lot to do, with taking care of ourselves, or belonging, or, feeling like we have a place and that we're cared for and that we're provided for. And it does have a lot to do with trust. So it's interesting. So what's on this list is, at the very top, it's hopelessness, and then comparing partners, not eating right, lack of sleep, rumors, suicidal thoughts, racing thoughts, restlessness, inability to concentrate, lack of interest, an emotional roller coaster, abandonment, emotionally checked out, difficult holidays, loyalties, loneliness, no trust, betrayal, afraid, touchy or on edge. Self-esteem is lost, confidence is lost, change of residence, change of school for children, change of church, no trust. There's no trust again. It was huge, so they put it in a couple times. Money issues, poor work performance, parenting difficulties, painful memories, the kids must choose, family alliance is lost, lack of communication, and guilt. So that's an interesting list right there. The group identifies the following as ways in which breaking up has impacted and continues to impact their lives. And so I could see why, with all of this, with those things, those certain ways that change and loss and upheaval, personal devastation can impact our lives in certain ways, where it's definitely anything but comfortable or peaceful, And so I can see where and why we want to avoid things, and why are we just like to resist and ignore or distract ourselves from what it is we really are being asked to face and confront and acknowledge within ourselves. And so just kind of looking at those things, and it is interesting. So a couple days ago, I had picked up this book called The Attractor Factors. It's one of my many books that I bought at library sales and I haven't like really even looked at, but sometimes I'm drawn to the bookshelf and just like, okay, we'll pick that up and we'll open it and we'll see what what we get, you know. And so it was interesting that a few days ago I opened this and it was pretty much the author explaining something about like how we're creating all of it, how everything in our lives we're creating all of it. And he was having this conversation just to kind of illustrate a point to a friend. And in the book, the friend was like, what are you just like kind of trying to prove your point? Or he's like, no, this is actually me creating something, and because I'm creating everything in my life, and you're actually here helping me to create that, you know. And so, yeah, it's just kind of interesting and funny, like, that like that those messages keep coming up, that we're the creators of it all, and that's what, like, in medicine cards, Dragonfly, and Dragonfly's wisdom, that we're, creating all of it. And so it is interesting, like, to hear that again. And then I opened this book, The Golden Key, that I asked for and I got for my birthday, right before my birthday, by Brandon Beachum. I opened this the other day and I flipped open to page 70. And this thing caught my eye, extraordinary. And it's just funny because that word keeps coming up again and again, too, extraordinary. So it is funny. I'm just going to read this little part for you. Extraordinary. In 2009, Andy Weir wrote a new popular short story called The Egg that I believe comes close to explaining the core truth regarding how reality is structured. In the story, a recently deceased man that has transitioned to the other side is talking to God, and she is explaining the ultimate nature of reality to him. She says, I made this whole universe for you. With each new life, you grow and mature and become a larger and greater intellect. Just me, he asks. What about everyone else? To which she replies, there is no one else in this universe. There's just you and me. And God goes on to say, every time you victimize someone, you are victimizing yourself. Every act of kindness you've done to yourself. Every happy and sad moment ever experienced by any human was or will be experienced by you. Ultimately, God explains to the man that only after he has reincarnated and experienced every human life will he have grown enough to be born, suggesting that essentially the universe, his universe, is simply his own personal egg. I envision the ultimate nature of reality to be similarly structured to the way Weir describes it. Prior to our exploration as individuated souls, I believe we are completely merged with Source consciousness. There is only one of us. At some point, the part of Source that is you decided to get adventurous and hatch off from the whole to experience something new, to see what it would be like to be a separate, relatively speaking, node of consciousness, a fractal of the whole, or a chip off the block, if you will. And when you embarked on this sojourn, there were other souls that broke off from Source in close energetic proximity to where you separated from. Another way to envision this is if you think of Source as an infinite tree with infinite branches. No matter how mind-bogglingly infinite this tree of life happens to be, there are always going to be leaves or branches that are right next to each other, blowing in the winds of eternity. And you could argue that the leaves next to you are more closely related to you than those far away on the other side of the tree, the same way you could say your fingers are more closely related to each other than they are to your toes. Yet ultimately, it's still all one tree or one body. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of interesting as well. So, another one of my favorite interviewees that I've had on the Positive Head podcast, former Harvard neurosurgeon and author of the New York Times bestselling book Proof of Heaven, Dr. Eben Alexander, explains that during his harrowing near-death experience, he was shown how we repeatedly reincarnate here in this soul school called Earth. Each of us has a close-knit soul group that is made up of the same souls that appear in our earthly life movies time and time again. We embark on the journey of physicality together with our soul family with the aim of playing playing the necessary roles for one another to help each other evolve and reach our divine potential in a setting that is more conducive to stimulate growth and the perfection from whence we came. And when we return again and again to continually refine ourselves within and across lifetimes, in essence, God is the all-pervading, ever-expanding consciousness that infinitely fractalizes and evolves himself through all living things. He is the oak tree hidden in every acorn, awaiting the right conditions to emerge into its full glory, and our soul groups are the perfect soil to create those conditions. Source's eternal self-love story truly is the greatest romance ever written. This is awesome. And so, just thinking about, like, our stories and how this is a play and it is a school of learning and it is like for discovery and to grow and to be. And like just thinking about the myth and the mythos of Sophia, and I had picked up this book again today, Not in His Image, and read a couple pages, and it was like really super interesting, the things that I did come across when I flipped it open, and I may share a little bit about that. But it just, there's so many things that I can relate to this story and to my receiving it and digesting it and caring for it. The story that's come to me that I'm going to care for, because it'll help me care for myself and help me know myself. And so it is super interesting when we look at our experiences, if we can see them as a story, or we can view it through an impersonal lens to see certain characters and see certain archetypes and see certain energies or qualities or aspects, and how those voices can help us understand what's being asked of us and what is asking to be included and integrated or surrendered and given back. And so it's just like one of those things, like what am I holding on to that's reinforcing my suffering or reinforcing like my small self or my small identity, and how is that causing pain for me? And so how do I get to embrace that and meet that and honor that for me and we? And so I thought this little quote was interesting as well, and this is from Astrology Alive by Barbara Schermer. New Directions in Astrology, Experiential Astrology, Astrodrama, and the Healing Arts. And I flipped open to chapter 3, Using Experiential Astrology. We are enacting, telling, witnessing the story of our souls. James Hillman, Revisioning Psychology. And so a couple years ago, I was just wondering, like, what is the appeal of the television and the television shows and these stories and these narratives and these descriptions and these characters? And some stories, like certain myths, are told over and over again with slightly different plots or twists or, just differences, slightly different differences. But if we look at the bones of the story, it's the same ones over and over again sometimes. And it's just like, I was kind of asking my younger self this question years ago about what is it so much like that? What's the attachment to like these stories that we have? And it just, just kind of was contemplating, and I got that, and it kind of relates to like, we love our stories. We love our stories because we can so relate. We can see ourselves in them. And that's why like we have like certain preferences for certain stories and certain feelings and certain things. And so it was just interesting to me. But this goes even further into that. So, in ancient times, the portrayal of archetypal planetary energies was integral to public drama. Theater was a sacred cathartic medium designed to heal through direct contact with the deepest levels of consciousness. Modern theater, on the other hand, though it may experiment with the evocation of deep symbols from time to time, seeks more often to entertain rather than transform. So, to entertain and to entrain and to indoctrinate rather than to transform. But there is like certain agendas and certain influences that those symbols and those stories have on our unconsciousness and on our psyche. So I think that's really interesting as well. So the astrodrama performance described below was one in a series of steps towards recreating the healing theater of the past with astrological symbols as the medium for direct interaction with the unconscious. As you read on, note the healing effects of the form on both the audience and the actors, as well as the ease with which astrodrama communicates astrological information to those who may not know so much as their own sun sign. This performance was created to express the astrological influences present at the very moment in which it was enacted. What is described was the first two connected performances, one staged on the lunar eclipse on a full moon, Taurus and Scorpio, of May 1985 for a general audience, and the other on a solar eclipse on the new moon in Scorpio for the National Council on Geocosmic Research in November 1985. And that's interesting. The setting is large converted gymnasium in the Noyes Cultural Arts Center in Evanston, Illinois. Large floor-to-ceiling windows line two sides of the room and overlook a broad lawn. It's a beautiful, warm spring night. As dusk turns to dark, the glow of flickering candles mirrors the star-studded backdrop. The full moon rises lazily in the night sky, and an audience of more than 100, half of whom know astrology, settle into their seats to enjoy the performance. Why not join us for the show? As the lights fade to black, the deep, resonant voice of the narrator breaks the silence, and God created the sun, the moon, and the planets. And a spotlight catches the brightly costumed planets as one by one they make their entrances. Yeah, and it just goes on to say how, like, these characters play out this little astro drama as they're each symbolizing or representing like one of the planets, and the drama and the relationship and the dance between them. And so that's pretty interesting. With this quote again, we are enacting, telling, witnessing the story of our souls. James Hillman, Revisioning Psychology. And so just like remembering that, like witnessing and observing. And that's what I've been doing my best with the last couple days, because a lot of shit did get stirred up, and it's been pretty challenging in a lot of ways, and a lot of it does have to do, some of it does have to do with emotional exploitation and emotional pain, and spiritual exploitation and spiritual abuse, spiritually abusive behavior, and spiritually abusive dynamics and patterns and all those things. And so, manipulation and domination and control. And so I want to share a couple pages of my journal that I wrote in the last couple days. I'm not even sure what I'm going to share or what wants to be shared right now, but we'll just see. And so, September 11th, I just flipped it open to, so we'll just have, I'll share what I have written here. So short-term memory, goldfish memories, PTSD, member berries, spin doctors and terrorized plebes, self-righteous world police, the good guys versus the baddies, cops versus robbers, and predator versus alien. Tired old stories, plots, agendas, and games, distortions, lies, and mythic stories, reinforcing these dark power plays. Lower ego survival strategies. I'm willing to forgive and surrender all the silliness, all the dumbass ignorance, and all the arrogance, emotional toxicity, psychological warfare, That's eating me. A cold and defiant anger. Is it time to be fierce and fight back? Right aggression, right anger, right action, right being, right thought, right intention. Give up our wrongs to make right. So we must be willing to give up our wrongs to make it right, to reclaim our rights. Reality assessment, choice, acceptance, appreciation, power, authenticity, freedom, and accountability. Avoidance, false control, domination, manipulation, exploitation, mind control, mind games. Surrender, humility, faith, trust, and grace, forgiveness, willingness, strength, and empathy. Keepers of the wisdom, record keepers, Vesta, home, temple, teachers, leaders, the lighthouse, the magician, fire, water, the elements, elementals, shedding old skin, ego death, worn out clothes and puts on new ones, the scapecoat and the scapegoat, the ram, Ra, Capricorn, and the mountain goat, the motherfucking two-headed goat, LOL, dual nature, the twins, the double, the doppelganger, the tyrant, the miser, the rebel, the outcast, the slave, the trickster, the fool, the priestess, the maiden, the mother and crone, the liberator, the devotee, the initiate, the child, Thoth, Christ, Hermes, Buddha, and Vitala, Vishnu and Shiva, cosmic mind, God self-realized, die before you die so that you do not die, the Eleusinian mysteries, and Elysium. Sound healing and healing frequencies, geometry and the word, God, the light, the harp, art, music, angels, messengers, the fruit that offers itself to the maiden, the branch that lowers itself, the pear that offers itself, the maiden that opens to receive and accept what is being offered. That is personal responsibility and trust, faith, grace, and strength. Sekhmet, Hathor, Isis, Mot, rebirth, re-earth. Scorpio, Saturn, Chiron, the nodes, Venus, Mars, Pluto, Uranus, Mercury, the Sun, the Moon, Jupiter, and Neptune, the scales, the soul song, the dance, the chant, the breath, the word, creation, mythos, ancient stories, accounts, poetry, visions, emanations, and dreams, novelty and regeneration, death and rebirth themes, sound, light, technology, and levitation, telepathic, empathic communication, emptying oneself for divine instrumentation, divine healing, blessing, broadcasting, love, interventions, divine interventions, indulgences and addictions, replacements, distractions and substitutions, poor choices, conveniences. A convent is that a comfortable prison, familiar comfort zone, stagnant energy, spinning slow. Just witness and watch, observe, no adding or subtracting is necessary. Just let love and let go. So, yeah, no adding or subtracting is necessary. And so that's been coming up a lot lately, is just being as I am, allowing myself as I am, allowing life as she is right now, allowing it to be all it is, and without the need to fix, control, or make it more comfortable right now. Just being with what is. And so those messages have been emerging in beautiful ways as well, and I'll put a couple of links into the description box there. Some beautiful affirming messages that I received yesterday, and I also got to share with my auntie, and she appreciated them. And just like good conversations this week with loved ones, and some good reflections, and questions that I've been asking myself. And so on September 11th, there was just something, and sometimes and this is just like an old pattern too, just like the resentments, coming up around manipulation and control, and spinning certain things, spinning certain stories to push certain agendas of control. And it's just so old. It feels so old to me. And that's why it's just I feel so frustrated and so tired of it, so fed up, and just beyond done with it, in certain ways, and just want to be done with it. And it's just interesting, that I think that there's an end to this. an end to this endless cycle of suffering. And it's just like, okay, what am I avoiding? Go back to the beginning, to go back to I don't know, go back to the I don't know. And so what do I know for sure? I do know that life is a gift and love is a gift, and all this is a gift, and we are the gifts, and that we have all these gifts to share. And that's what I choose to focus on and become more, so I can become more aware. And some of me wanted to get sucked into this self-pity and this self-importance and just the self-pity of poor me and we, we've been so fucked with, and the victim mentality, and it's just okay, well, it's okay for me to feel angry about this and feel angry and not like this, but what do I get to do with it? And what can I allow to exist? What can I let go of? What can I accept? And what can I change? And it's just looking at those things. And what can I allow right now? What can I allow it to be for all of we right now? And so it's just allowing the process and allowing each step to be taken, and each choice to be made, So gifts, life is the gift, all of this, be with it, love all this is it, all of this, love, this is it. So I'm thinking about GSF behavior and AD behavior and the wheel of suffering, spiritually abusive behavior and God-sovereign behavior, guilt, shame, vanity, greed, self-righteous, indoctrination, selfish, self-interest, and lower ego survival strategies, pride, anger, hate, self-loathing, victim judgmentality, fragile covert narcissists, and psychopathy. Being normalized and reinforced through rigid identities, myths, and stories, fear, avoidance, pain. Cognitive dissonance, doublespeak, and abstracting to the nth degree. Emotional exploitation and spiritual toxicity, mental slavery, mind control, self-deception, and an unwillingness to open, see, receive. A clear and wide perspective, our responsibility. To own our shit, own our power, and what we've helped to create. Mercy, forgiveness, compassion, love, and empathy. Softening, opening, surrendering, letting go, and accepting the things I cannot change. Accepting the responsibility for the things that I can change. Obedience to authority. False control, false security. False perception, false reality. False light, false awakening. False stories, false roles, false identity. False image, false solutions, false ideals, false livelihood, false ideologies, false personalities, false life, artificial ways of operating. Unconscious programming through forked tongue, doublespeak, forced tyranny and slavery, mind control and exclusivity, conformity, manipulation, domination, dishonoring individuality and the legitimate right to be free. Authentic, whole, transparent, true, sovereign, full, and free. What is the remedy for this false idolatry? Love, forgiveness, and humility, compassion, joy, and empathy, creative fertility and reconnection with and through our fullness, our true well-being. Come back home to eternal truth. Love is who we are. See, everyone is powerful. We are all bright, shining stars. So if we can see everyone is powerful, and that's what I've been reminding myself, what kind of choices would we make for ourselves? I am willing to forgive. I choose to forgive. I choose to let go. I choose to be free. I choose my freedom and my autonomy. I choose my fullness and my legitimacy. I choose my power. I choose my love. I choose my power to create, change, and be. I choose my greatness. I choose my life. I choose my fertility. I choose trust. I choose faith. I choose love. I choose humility. I choose to be the one at peace. I choose to be at peace. I choose sovereignty. I choose all is peace. And so just kind of looking at some things and seeing where I've been playing the victim in certain ways, And also the tyrant, like I can be my own worst tyrant, and when I disallow me all my ways. And also, like, when I feel like other people are wrong for doing it their way, like, I can see, like, where certain judgments have clouded my vision and distorted things for me, you know. So just kind of looking deeper into those things about where we can trick ourselves and deceive ourselves. Yeah, because of certain rigidities or things we're attached to, certain identities, and the false images, and the false stories that we're so busy reinforcing. And so, yeah, just kind of looking at certain things and my fears, confronting those fears, to face them with courage and integrity. And looking at, like, where I can take accountability for what I've helped to create. And also where I can set boundaries and I can say no in loving kindness and in loving kind ways. So, who needs to be told to take a long walk off a short pier? Yeah, I can think of one right now. And so, yeah, it's just like really like trying to, like, what am I so angry about, like, right now? And so just writing this morning about who needs to be told to take a long walk off a short pier. Assholes who are head deep in their bullshit, that's clear. You don't know shit if you have not looked into the distortions, the corruption, the manipulation and control mechanisms of this inverted system of domination and control. Or powerlessness, victim, judge, savior, identity attachments, and the shadows of the heart and mind. The shadows of the law of one, the shadows of government, corporation, charity organizations, so-called big medicine, external authority, church and state, social and popular culture, indoctrination, media infiltration, and propaganda disinformation, mind control mechanisms to keep us at war, reinforcing the false image and the wheel of suffering, false ideals and false control. Wake the fuck up, please, and raise yourself up. Beyond the false image and the lower beast's mechanized dream of false stories, false living, false realities, fragmented beliefs, split minds, divided hearts, the wheel of pain and suffering, schizophrenic operating. Blame, shame, name games that perpetuate endless recycling of pain, avoiding power, choice, and responsibility. Are you really learning anything new, genuinely for yourself? Or are you absorbing and reinforcing outer, external, established ideas, beliefs, attachments, roles, and stories? What are you learning? And does what you are learning and focusing on, listening to, contribute to peace, well-being, trust, clarity, coherence, and unity? Or does it further violence? Does it further separation and division, self-righteousness, and polar division, manipulation, domination, and control? What does it support and what does it hold? Is it fear-based or is it based in love's truth? Is it an agenda of survival-based control? Is it victim mentality or unconscious ego? Self-righteous ego? Is the self-righteous ego at play? Or are we being carried away by misdirected energy, ego flattery, and our attachments to our false stories, perceptions, and identities through our personal history? Or, that history. What have you considered? What are you open to receiving or seeing that you have not seen before? Are you willing to consider other possibilities? Are you willing to really see things as they are? Are you willing to see things as they really are? Are you willing to see yourself as you really are? Do your beliefs contribute to growth and empowering changes for yourself and others? Do your choices open you to new perspectives, ideas, and experiences? Or do they limit and restrict possibilities and ways of thinking, seeing, relating, being, and cooperating? Do your perspectives leave room for others to have and hold their own perspectives, their own choices, and their own experiences? Do your choices contribute to joy and true well-being? Do your choices contribute to pain, disease, control, and suffering? Do your choices empower or disempower you individually and collectively? Do your beliefs need to be validated and reinforced repeatedly? Are you able or willing to suspend and surrender your beliefs, your tribal and personal opinions, and feelings, assumptions, preconceived notions about everything you think you know? Yeah. Can you? Are you able or are you willing to suspend and surrender your beliefs about everything you think you know to be true? Why or why not? And what can this show you about you? Where are you denying or rejecting, dishonoring, and disallowing you? What are you fighting for? What are you living for? What are you fighting against? Yeah, what are you against and what's against you? So what are you choosing? What are you contributing to? What are you moving towards? What are you moving through? What are your weaknesses, strengths, limitations, and potential? Where are you owning your choices and power? Where are you giving your power away? Do you trust yourself? Do you trust your life? Do you trust your own abilities? Forgiveness, compassion, patience, faith, grace, empathy, and humility. Trust, mercy, and severity. Allowance, acceptance, and strength. Clarity, healing. Surrender, inclusivity, integration, fullness, freedom, and accountability. Persecution themes, anger, manipulation, and deceit, exploitation, and atrocity. Defensiveness and resentments, disappointment, and disapproval. Obviously, I've had very little patience and allowance for the uptight, anxious, worry-prone, prudish, judgmental, fickle, ignorant, cocky, or cocksure, deceitful, manipulative, narcissistic, prideful, vain, frightened, rigid, and defensive, self-righteous, self-justified ego aspects of myself that I don't care for, and I even despise at times. That's false power and control. And an even lower tolerance for absolute lies and willful ignorance, prideful arrogance. Those ideas and attitudes that might makes right. Yeah. So express your desires and your goals clearly. Own your own desires and your power to create and your power to change. And so just kind of like noticing that schizophrenic and schizophrenia and schizo has been coming up a lot in some of my writings and some of my art. And so I was just like, let's look into that. Let's look into the etymology of schizophrenic because like it's been coming up in certain books and things and it's so funny. So actually today when I opened up Not in His Image, I opened it to chapter 13 and it actually had a little part in there about like this demiurge and this archon that proclaimed itself as God being like a schizophrenic God. And so like the Gnostics are like, no, that dude, that Yaldabaoth, that Yaldabaoth, man, he's a schizophrenic God. Or yeah, so I was like looking into that, literally the splitting of the mind. So it is like a split mind. And so it's like unifying our own mind and mastering our own mind, unifying the whole within. Yeah. And it's from the Greek skhizein, to split, to cut, to split. And then phren relates to the heart and the mind. And then phrenes is plural, which relates to wits and sanity, and it says see phreno or phreno. Yeah, and so I thought that would be interesting to look at that. So schizophrenic is like the split mind. Like no wonder, like we're all so yeah, full of mind because we're so full of it, and we're split in two. Yeah. So, phreno, this is from the etymology online. Phreno, so word-forming element meaning mind, also in medical use, relating to the diaphragm, the muscle which parts the abdomen from the thorax, from the Greek phren, phrenos, the mind, spirit. Also the midriff, the diaphragm, also in plural, phrenes, the parts around the heart, the breast, and hence wits, sense, sanity, mind. on the notion of the breast or heart as the seat of thoughts and passions. The word is of uncertain origin. Watkins has it under a proposed pi root, which is GWHREN, to think. Beeks finds the connection with phrasen, to fence or hedge in, semantically attractive, that there are phonetic difficulties, and he finds quite feasible a relationship with PHRAZOMAI, to think, to consider. Yeah, and to see phrase itself as an isolated word, which is interesting. So I'll share that in the description link for schizophrenia. Yeah, and I just thought, yeah, that's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting. And so, yeah, I've been just pretty angry, really, about the manipulation, the deception, the continued slander that causes division, and yeah. But it's like, yeah, there's nothing for me really to be defensive about. I know in my heart, like, what I'm doing and what I'm choosing for me. And I guess what other people choose to see is up to them. And it's their choice to look into their own bullshit and their own power and their own accountability, or like to surrender it and give it to someone else. But like, yeah, and that's not like something that I would choose for myself. But if that's what they want to choose for themselves, like, go right ahead and give your power away, but don't keep blaming someone else, like, for your powerlessness, you know, and for the injustices of the world, you know. It's like, claim your own power. Claim it for yourself. And it's not just like for ourselves, it's for all. It's for all beings, so all beings may be free. And yeah, so it's a selfless thing in service to the whole. And so I'm just looking at forgiveness again, because I know how much the act of forgiveness has opened up for me, and how it has cleared a lot of distortions away. And so, yeah, it's just going into a deeper level and a deeper layer of forgiveness and letting go and surrendering these old things and confronting, yeah, my own weaknesses and my own, the ways that I've manipulated myself, and that I've played things out, and that I've helped to create like certain messes, you know, and created certain errors because of errors in judgment or errors in perception. Yeah, which is really, really interesting, because of the pages that I read today, and not his image was all about that. It was about the error, and yeah, and about novelty, and we'll see what wants to be shared about that. Let's see. Okay, so monotheism begins with a God who hates trees. Ye shall utterly destroy all the places wherein the nations which ye shall possess serve their gods, upon the high mountains and upon the hills and under every green tree. And ye shall overthrow their altars and break their pillars and burn their idols with fire. And ye shall hew down the carved images of their gods and destroy the names of them out of that place. That's from Deuteronomy 12:2-3. The demiurge of the Old Testament is jealous, insisting that no other gods be honored before him. This demand, of course, implies that there are other gods competing deities. They are pagan divinities who pervade nature, manifesting in all manner of creatures and clouds and rivers and trees, even in rocks. Monotheism will tolerate none of these sensuous, immanent powers. It makes the earth void of divinity, its inhabitants subject to an off-planet landlord. And maybe that's why some of my anger, my self-righteous indignation is because I have lived through this persecution and this bullshit and this exploitation and this pain and suffering before, and it's just like, I don't want to do it again. And I don't know, what to do about it. And maybe there isn't anything to do about it. I don't know. So I'll just be in that not knowing. So I just flipped this open to chapter 17. It's the end of patriarchy, and that's how the chapter begins. But what I flipped open to earlier today was the demented deity, the insane god, and chapter 13, the passions of Sophia. And that was actually page 194, 195 that I opened to. And then I just had to read the whole chapter, but not in linear order. It was funny how it happens, though, how it just does happen. And so this is, where I began today. At one moment, they, the heretics, affirm she would weep and lament on account of being left alone in the midst of darkness and vacuity, while at another moment she would be filled with joy and laugh. Then again she would be struck with terror, or at other moments would sink into consternation and bewilderment. And that's like the roller coaster ride right now. This is funny. So, as the drama of the repentant sun unfolds, Sophia's metamorphosis into a planetary body escalates steadily. It seems that the goddess may have been as perplexed as we are about the admixture of organic and inorganic life. And so, this is from page 194. And so, it's pretty interesting. The conversion of Sabaoth comes as a huge relief to the goddess, for it means that she is no longer alone in her plight. Now there is another cosmic entity who shares her passion, not an aeon from the Pleroma, but a lesser deity from the outer realm of chaos, the Kanoma. The archontic realm of elementary matter provides the material for the planetary system, but the sun, the central body of that system, is not a planet, it is a star, the star called Sabaoth. It's Sabaoth. The central body of our solar system is not produced by Sophia's impact in the Dema. It arises from a totally independent process. While the archontic world is forming, there is a parallel event in the Kanoma, the galactic arms where Sophia now finds herself. The galactic armature revolves constantly around the Pleromic hub, and as it does so, it churns the fields of elementary matter into massive grains we call stars. Star-making is a perpetual activity of the galactic limbs. This we know on the authority of modern astrophysics. Stars are not shot from the galactic core, they are ground like massive grains from elementary matter of the rotating limbs. The mills of the gods grind slow, but they grind exceeding fine, goes an old saying. This grinding activity produces specific formations in the quantum foam that do not devolve from aeonic emanation. At atomic and subatomic levels, the dynamics of the galactic armature are relatively independent of the core. So, parallel to the arising of the archons around Sophia, a star is born in the neighboring galactic zone. Astrophysicists believe that the mother star of our planetary system emerged from the great nebula in the constellation the Hunter, Orion. The newborn star came blasting out of the nebular cloud, rotating like an immense turbine and spinning elementary matter into a protoplanetary disk. The emergent star defines the center of a swirling vortex of raw, inorganic elements that eventually consolidate into planets. This conception of how a solar system forms is close to the Gnostic myth, with one notable difference. When Sabaoth emerges from the nebula, it encounters interstellar activity already in progress. Sophia's plunge has produced the archons, that is to say, her currents have affected and configured elementary matter already to some extent. One way to imagine this situation is to picture how the high porosity, mass-free currents of the aeon would gradually densify, taking on mass and darkening, losing their pure self-luminous qualities as Sophia absorbs elementary material. The glorious opalescent plume of organic light that surged from the pleroma would come to an end at a node, exactly in the way many growing things do. For instance, the leaves on the stem of a fern grow in reducing fractal patterns until the fern curves on itself and closes into a node, the endpoint of its organic formation. Likewise, the massive current of aeonic light, the substance of living radiance that streams from the pleroma when Sophia plunged, congealed to a nodal point. But there is also a cosmic node where the newborn sun appears, formed at the center of its immense turbospin. In the complete imagination of this event, the two nodes interlock when Sabaoth aligns with Sophia. This mythic scenario suggests that the protoplanetary disk of modern astrophysics is really an oval, not a circular disk. An oval, or ellipse, is an egg-shaped form with two foci, two foci, whereas a circle has only one focus, its center point. How does the mythic image of Sophia Sabaoth in a structural coupling, to borrow a term from Gaian theory, stand against modern cosmology? Well, the fact is, the orbits of the planets in our solar system are elliptical, not circular. Each planet, including the Earth, has two foci, the aphelion, more distant from the sun, the I see. The aphelion and the perihelion, nearer to the sun. The sun is at the center of the orbits of the planets, but the orbital tracks actually have two centers. When the elliptical form of the planetary orbits was determined by Johannes Kepler in 1604, the astronomer declared that he had rediscovered the secret knowledge of the Egyptian mysteries. And then they talk about the luminous child. The luminous child. It takes some time to extract concrete cosmological elements from the sacred narrative of the mysteries, but the results can be impressive. We may well wonder how far we can go back with this exercise. What, if anything, can the Sophia mythos tell us about cosmic structure, the actual dimensions of the planetary system, for instance? To answer this question, let's return to the primary event of episode 5. And so, yeah, that's super interesting. Contemplating the imaginative picture of Sophia's impact in the Kenoma, it helps to remember that the luminous germ of the Anthropos was deposited out there, embedded in a nebular cloud before the goddess made the plunge. Sophia is constantly in the presence of the Anthropos template, the cosmic matrix of the immortal child of light. In the passage cited here, the goddess alerts the demiurge to the presence of a race greater than himself and his legion of celestial cyborgs, and predicts that this luminous child will eventually overcome all the works of the archons. The triumph of humanity over the archons is one of the great themes of the mysteries. The use of dual language, humanity exists and the offspring of humanity exists, is intriguing. It may suggest that Gnostics saw in the Anthropos the genetic matrix of more than one strain of humanity. It is the source of many humanoid races of which we on Earth are one. What is special about us is the cosmic sense is that we are the human strain inhabiting the planet that uniquely embodies the goddess who encoded the multi-strained Anthropos. So when Sabaoth heard the voice of Sophia, he worshipped her. He condemned the Archon on account of the word of Sophia. He glorified her because she informed him of the deathless child of light, the Anthropos. Then Sophia poured upon Sabaoth a light from her divine light for recognition of the condemnation of the Archon. When Sabaoth received this light, he also received great authority over the powers of chaos. Since he has authority, he created a dwelling place for himself. It is a vast place and very excellent, sevenfold greater than all those places that exist in the heaven of the archons. Yeah, and that's from The Origin of the World, 103 and 4. Here is a reaffirmation of the pact between Sophia and the sun. It relates to the third anomaly of the Gaia hypothesis. The temperature range of the biosphere remains stable, favorable to life, even though the intensity of the sun has increased by 30% since the Earth was formed. It may seem preposterous to presume any genuine astronomical knowledge in the mythological material such as this, but then again, perhaps not. The fact is, the mass of the sun is known to be approximately 700 times greater than the combined mass of all the bodies in the solar system, sevenfold greater, if one counts hundreds as units of 7. Also, the mean distance from Earth to the sun is 93 million miles, called 1 astronomical unit, an AU. There are about 42 AU out to Pluto, the most distant planet of the system, but the gravitational pull of the sun extends yet further into outer space, with an approximate extent of 49 AU. The radius of the systemic gravity, well centered on the sun, is 7 times 7 of the Earth-Sun distance. It is a vast place and very excellent, sevenfold greater than all those places that exist in the heaven of the archons. Yeah, so I'll just leave it here. And I just thought, like, some of these things were super interesting to come and see today. And it did mention somewhere about the Gnostics. Here we go, two-source hologram. In the perspective of the Sophia mythos, anomaly is a double entendre. In one sense, it refers in one sense to the home planet standing apart from the rest of the planetary system, but it also means that the planetary system in its entirety is an anomaly. The world we inhabit came about through a mistake, says the famous one-liner from the Gospel of Philip. The mistake is not our world per se, not the planet Earth, but the inorganic scaffolding of the planetary system where Earth is captured. In the trimorphic Protonia, Sophia's original dreaming of a world where the Anthropos would emerge and demonstrate its singularity, the goddess imagined a three-body system, but this is not how our world turned out. It is entirely conceivable, however, that a planetary system could consist of one sun, the central star, and one planet with a moon. On Earth, we live in two systems at once, the terrestrial and the planetary or extraterrestrial. This fact of science is clearly prefigured in the sacred cosmology, but for Gnostic perception, it is not only a fact of science. Consistent with psychocosmic parallelism, this situation has actional effects with human experience. It affects how we live and think in an intimate manner. The planetary system exclusive of the sun, Earth and Moon, which is Earth's satellite, not actually a planet, is the realm of the archons, an extraterrestrial species whose corporeal and mental makeup depend on inorganic chemistry. The archons are really out there, residing in the planetary clockworks, and they also exist in our minds as part of the way we think and perceive. In the brilliant metaphor of science fiction writer Philip K. Dick, who is deeply influenced by Gnostic ideas, human reality is a two-source hologram. It's as if one hologram of a setting, such as a castle, were superimposed over another hologram of a different setting, say an elaborate treehouse. And we live in the merge. The three-body system of Sophia's original dreaming does exist after all, for her dreaming persists even as she herself is deeply immersed in it, embodied in the earth. But at the same time, we live in the setting of the planetary system, the clockwork cosmos of blind mechanics. Gnostics taught that the planetary setting is a deviant field that distorts our perception of Gaian dynamics. Gnostics taught that the planetary setting is a deviant field that distorts our perception of Gaian dynamics. Granted, this is not a notion that we can easily grasp or even accept for reflection. It is truly arcane, a steep challenge to analysis and imagination. It could be said that we are being tested by this part of the mythos to see if we can understand the merge of the archontic mind with our own. How can we detect subliminal effects that disguise themselves in this routine operations of mind and imagination? If Gnostics were indeed experts in the cognitive and noetic sciences and adepts at parapsychology, as I believe they were, they would have cultivated such detection to a fine art. We can perhaps learn to do the same, for the cosmic situation we face may force the task upon us. In any case, it helps enormously to have the metaphor of Philip K. Dick as a conceptual aid. Gnostic cosmology is dualistic, but not in the same way as the cosmology of Zoroaster, Persian duality discussed above in connection with the rise of Jewish theocracy. Let's recall that the religious doctrine of Persian duality absorbed by the Hebrews during the Babylonian captivity posits the opposition of good, Ahura Mazda, versus evil, Ahriman at the cosmic level. This is absolute duality. It assumes a split in the Godhead in the divine realm at the one source of all that exists. Hence, it may be called split source duality. It may also be called single source duality because it assumes that good and evil have the same origin due to a split at the source in the Godhead, an idea flatly refuted by Gnostics. In their protest against Christianity, Gnostics opposed Christian theology and dualist ethics based on the Jewish notion of a wrathful, punishing Father God who is also, believe it or not, the source of divine love. Split source duality is not what the Sophia mythos presents, however. It is of the utmost importance to distinguish Persian split source duality from the two source duality of Gnostic teachings. So it is of the utmost importance to distinguish Persian split source duality from the two source duality of Gnostic teachings. In the Gnostic view, there is no split in the pleroma, and consequently there is no absolute opposition of good and evil. In fact, Gnostics did not characterize the problem posed by the archons in terms of evil at all. They framed it in terms of error. They taught that we come to understand how evil arises in the world by tracing the working of error, the archontic factor. The appearance of the archons in the cosmic scenario of terrestrial formation is called the generation of error. Two-world duality has profound ethical and psychological implications utterly different from those of split-source duality. The Clementine Recognitions, a 4th century collection of anecdotes that illustrate theological arguments, describes how Christian converts who argued with the Gnostic Simon Magus were outraged by his insistence that good and evil do not come from the same source as they believed. This issue was a flashpoint of Gnostic hearsay. It drew enormous hostility toward mystery initiates who denied that evil in the human world could have a divine transhuman origin. This argument infuriated early Christians who followed the theological doctrines of the Jews, who in turn had assimilated Persian duality. The Qumranic materials state over and over again that the Lord God sends evil into the world as well as good. If the same omnipotent parental deity is the source of good and evil, there must be a split at the source, Gnostics argued. God must be schizophrenic. Christians and Jews alike deeply resented the mystery adepts for pointing out that a deity of infinite goodness would not introduce evil into the world. Gnostics not only demonstrated the logical absurdity of the Persian view, they had an explanation of evil to offer in place of it. But to Christians and Jews alike, all this arcane business about the archons was weird, convoluted, and difficult to follow. Worst of all, it looked like an insult to their God, depriving him of omnipotence. Both Christians and Jews took it as the supreme insult when Gnostics informed them that their creator was a demented alien named Yaldabaoth. Initiates who came forth from the mystery sanctuaries to deliver that particular message to the world at large paid heavily for the disclosure. Two-world duality does not occur in the planetary system. It inheres in the very nature of material existence. Abiogenesis is the name geologists give to the development of living organisms from non-living matter, as in the supposed origin of life on Earth. Oxford Dictionary of Earth Science 2003 edition. The reality of life is that organic forms seem to be seated upon an inorganic infrastructure. Paradoxically, life seems to have both an inorganic and organic origin. Reduce proteins and polypeptide chains to their elemental components and you get into the realm of inorganic chemistry, archon territory. Gaia theory often dances right on the fine rubbery ridge between organic and inorganic chemistry. How can organic life arise from the inorganic? As one anonymous wit has noted, hydrogen is a light, odorless gas which, given enough time, turns into people. Gnostic seers who detected this anomaly applied their highest powers of reasoning to interpret it. For them, the two-world setup was not an incidental or irrelevant matter, but an utterly real situation that profoundly affects human experience. And so, yeah, I just thought that was funny. And all those things that I had written the last couple days, there's themes. And, yeah, relating to, like, what's going on within me. And so, and what I see playing out on the outer stage. So I thought, that was, just really just strange and interesting. And it is weird, and it is a little hard to follow as well. And so, just kind of looking into all these things. Look into, face and confront, lies, manipulation, and deceptions, wild-boar medicine, confession, the blackening, negrito, and dismemberment, the egg, the face, the mannequin, the hands, the mind, the heart, the mouth, the root, the feet, the whole, and the center of being. And so, this one got a little long today. If you listened this long, thanks for listening. And I guess, I'll just kind of ask for help to see what I need to see so that I can be at peace within me, and even to just surrender what that's supposed to look like, and be willing to make the room for war if that's what the room is needed for. And although I don't wish that, and I wouldn't choose that, I can surrender and make room for it. Although I do wish us all well, and I wish us all peace, and I wish that we will find, the peace that we all need within ourselves and within our hearts, and so that we can unify that split heart and those split parts within us, so that it can be more coherent, and we can heal that schizophrenia, that split heart and mind, and that and those parts that we've cut away, and just looking into all those things. And so the ascent and the descent, and dismemberment and rememberment, and division and multiplication, and addition and subtraction, and all those things. So it just gives me a lot to contemplate, but I'm willing to surrender it, and surrender the need to understand what it is that I think I need right now, or that I think we need. And so just allowing myself to be with my feelings of anger and pain, and just to hold myself through it, and to let it move through me, and to witness, and to be a compassionate witness, and to show up and be here through like these endings and beginnings, the same part of the same thing, just existing at different degrees. And so I'm excited for our full moon coming up, our Pisces full moon. That'll be a great time to let go and release, surrender and release, and to let go, and also to make room and invite new life, and new all the new to be born and in through. And so strength, and the magician, and grace. And I think we all are longing for that grace. We all are longing for that grace, and we all belong to that grace. So here's to mercy, compassion, and grace, and empathy, and for all we're experiencing and going through, all this pain and suffering, and all that will be, all that is, all that's been, and all that will be. I bless it and praise it and thank it, and I release it and let it all go for me, for the self-love that I have, and the care that I have, the love that I have for me and we. May we all be happy, may we all be healthy, may we all be at peace, may we all be free, may we all be freed from our suffering, may we all be held, may we all be at peace, may we all know we are loved and we belong. We belong to each other and ourselves. All right, be good to yourselves, love yourself, know yourself, free yourself, be yourself, love yourself, live for yourself, live your life through your whole self, know yourself, love your whole self, be your whole self, make room for that whole self, for all parts of the whole. All right, love y'all. We'll see you for now.